Run steep, get high. Run flat, stay low. Run the mountain, run the road. Run past the 8-stand to the commode. Oh, run steep, get high. Run flat, stay low. One stream, two guys. Mountain Outpost. Now here's your host.
Hey, welcome to episode, I think, 30 of the Mountain Outpost podcast. This is a secret one because we are recording this and not streaming it for once. And it's going to be short, but it's going to be action-packed, so let's get right into it. I am your host, Jamil Curry, here with Skizzlefresh Skylar Hall. How you doing today, sir?
Dude, I am functional. Legs are, I'm not going to say feeling great, but they feel relatively normal. Done a couple of light jogs after my foray through Boston on Monday. So yeah, man, getting back into it. Into it. How you holding up?
Doing well. We're recording this. Is this Thursday, Friday? What day is this? Friday?
Friday morning, yeah.
Friday morning. A little bit of an off week. We didn't have a chance to connect earlier in the week. But yeah, how was Boston? It was just Monday, just a few days ago. I think you were walking a little tenderly down some stairs right after.
Yeah. Oh no, it was it was quite the experience. No, in terms of the race itself, you know, as I talked about last pod, you know, this isn't the A race. Like New York, that was the A goal. But as we got closer and closer to Marathon Monday, I was like, listen, I don't know when I'm going to get a chance to be back here. I can't just treat this as some sort of workout. So let me just send it and see what happens. So that's what happened for about 29 to 30K. Actually went out more conservatively than I did back in 2019, where I ran 3 hours flat in 52 seconds. I was like 3 minutes slower through the half marathon. I was like, let me be chill. The rolling start, you weren't in the same sort of grouping of folks taking off the line that sucked you along too fast, too early. So I was managing well. Heart rate was in a good spot. And then, I don't know, shortly after coming through Wellesley and just like high-fiving every college girl I could, you know, because that's what you do in Wellesley. Yeah, my heart rate was just like, hey, like we're no longer enjoying this pace right now. I had gone through the half in like 129 or something. So I was like, you know, just right there around 3 flat pace. And then my heart rate jumped about 15 BPMs in the course of about a mile and hadn't even hit the hills yet. And I was like, I got to start backing off because I should not be at what is akin to like my 5K race pace heart rate with a little under half of a marathon to go. And then I had to tie my shoe at one point, and that's when my hamstring locked up. And then it was just bad news bears from there. So it was just the good old ultra walk jog strategy to try to maintain some sort of forward movement. You know, got to the finish line, ran like 3:17 and change. Had a very solid last mile. It looked kind of okay, according to the video. Only lost one nipple in the process of the race. Had a couple days of difficulty walking downstairs after that. But yeah, man, the legs are already back. So I'm looking forward to getting some mileage in here over the next, I guess, 10 to 14 days. And then doing a proper taper for New York on November 7th. And then 3 weeks after that, we got Quad Dipsy. So no rest for this guy.
Nice. Got a solid calendar. What was the atmosphere like out there? Did it feel like kind of like everything was back to normal for the most part, except for maybe the rolling start?
The rolling start was definitely a little bit odd. Like you got off the bus and you were like, all right, just start moving. Normally you get to kind of hang out at the Hopkinton High School and use the restroom, eat some snacks, whatever. But once you cleared that start line, like it basically felt like normal. Other than people who were obviously making signs that were like, hey, like socially distanced high fives and, you know, whatever, like weird COVID related fun they could have on course. But in terms of just like the atmosphere of the crowd, there was definitely folks out there. They were hyped. They were having a great time. They were, 2 or 3 deep in sections, over the barricades yelling at you. So everything else about it seemed completely normal. And then you got to the finish line and just eat all the snacks and drink all the drinks. And it was a good time. It was good to be back. Always great atmosphere there, and I expected no less. I received no less. Shout out to folks, fans of the Mountain Outpost universe, for yelling at me as I strolled by. Definitely got some love from them as well. So if you're one of those folks, thank you. But yeah, man, it was awesome. I'm looking forward to doing it all again in 3.5 short weeks.
Nice. So let's take a step back. Let's talk about maybe the marathons that happened this weekend, because we had Chicago and we had Boston, correct?
That is correct.
Do you have any info on how those played out? Because I honestly, I didn't follow super closely personally. So
Yeah. So Chicago happened on Sunday, much more sort of American-centric leaderboard, I would say, especially on the women's side. So we sort of touched on it last week. There had been a lot of last-minute drops and changes to the elite field at Chicago. One of those names that did not change was Ruth Chepngetich. She was billed as the top seed. She had like a 3-minute faster than everybody else's PR. So she went out guns blazing. She had a pacer, which ends up being a theme in terms of Chicago. But she rolls out with the pacer, blows her pacer up before 10 miles because she's going out at like world record pace, like 2:11, 2:12 pace. And this person was just like, I didn't sign up for this. This is a hard pass. So blows up her pacer. So she's basically on her own for the rest of the time. Has a huge positive split, but she was so far ahead that she still ends up winning by basically 2 minutes over Emma Bates, who ran a much more even, actually, I believe, negative split race for second place overall, first American. Sarah Hall rolls in with a squad of her own personal pacers, ends up finishing third in 2:27.19, so second American. Kira D'Amato finishes fourth overall, just a minute back from Sarah. She's the third American. We haven't heard from her in a while because she missed the Olympic trials on the track, dealing with injury. But the Nike athlete finally gets her shine in the day. People kind of forget that she actually had a pretty spectacular run at the Olympic trials, and that's what triggered the hype train that ended up being the entire 2020 pandemic season for her. But she finishes fourth here, which is a really strong finish at any marathon major. We had, in terms of other Americans sort of in the mix in the top 10 or so, Carrie Verdon comes through as the 6th place overall finisher, followed up by Sarah Pagano in 7th. You had Lindsay Flanagan, who was at 9th, and then Aaliyah Gray was in 12th, coming out of that Roots running camp in Boulder. So very, very diverse array of sponsors, especially on the American side. So, ASICS getting second and third overall, probably as good of a day as they could have hoped for on the women's side. So shout out to them. Notably, Jordan Hasay not appearing in the results after the fact. She had admitted going in for this weekend for Boston that she wasn't at top of fitness. So we're going to come up and see that of women that we expected to see, not necessarily in the top 10, but in play, she DNFs. But this is the first time we got to bring up Shalane Flanagan because she ran 2:46.39 in Chicago and then ends up in Boston the next day. But we'll touch on that in a second. On the men's side, we had a much closer race for the top three. Seifu Tura ends up winning in 2:06.12, broke Galen Rupp and Eric Kiptanui sort of in the final miles of the race. Galen does hold on for second, finishes in 2:06.35, so a little bit slower than his personal best. But you can't be mad when you get a second place finish at a World Marathon Major, showing once again that he is just head and shoulders above the rest of the American crowd when it comes to marathoners. Eric Kiptanui does stay on for third place in 2:06.51. Kengo Suzuki was fourth, and Shafera Tamru was fifth. Then we have some names that most people have no idea how they came into this, but Colin McCow is second American overall in sixth place. Nico Montañez finishes just behind him in seventh. Ruben Kipyego is eighth, which is a name that folks do know. Then Reed Fisher finishes ninth out of the 10-man elite, and then Wilkerson Given is in 10th. So you have 4 Americans finishing in the sort of 6 through 10 section of the Chicago leaderboard, and most people could not name any of them. They might be able to name one. So a very interesting shakeup in terms of the guys who are running in that 210 to 213 bubble. So good day for them. And then a bunch of people hopped flights, not just Shalane, but a surprising number of folks over to Boston the next day to run on Monday. So Boston, much different ball game. The women's race was just a squad. They rolled out, and it was it literally looked like a cross country race. Like they rolled through the half and were just like cruising along all in a huge pack, taking up the entire road. And then fireworks finally started happening relatively late in the race. But Diana Kipioke ends up winning in 2:24.45. Edna Kiplagat rallies the mother, the 41-year-old, if I remember correctly. She's back in third, fourth, fifth place. Just books it in the last 5K, ends up taking second, 2:25.09. Mary Ngugi is third in 2:25.20. Nell Rojas, which I don't think was on a lot of people's radars, ends up being the top American and 6th female overall with a time of 2:27.12. Honestly, I think most people have forgotten about her until she dropped that Sweat Elite workout video a few weeks back, because she had disappeared and was doing OCR racing and triathlons, and then recently came back to the sport of road running. So shout out to her for taking the top American spot. Elena Tabb ends up second American, 2:30.33, and then Dakota Lindworm is third American, 2:31.04. So that's the women's race. Oh, lest we forget, Shalane runs 2:40, which is absurd. Was it 20 hours after? Not even, because you have a time change. So really 19 hours after she finishes Chicago, does the whole flies over, gets an ice bath, does what she has to do, toes the line with the elite men, or excuse me, with the first wave of men, and then runs a 2:40, just cruising, killing it. So that was the most difficult part of her journey to 6 marathons in 6 weeks, in 7 weeks, under 3 hours. She has a virtual race coming up to replace Tokyo, which would have been this upcoming weekend, but is canceled. And then she will also be towing the line in New York City on November 7th. So let's see how many more minutes I can lose to Shalane. I only gave her 37 on Boston's course. So let me try to shrink that gap just a smidge at New York. On the men's side, it was, if you were watching live, hype day, especially if you were an ultra runner, because CJ Albertson was just gone.
I think I saw some posts about that. Yeah, he was just way out there.
Lights out. It was to the point where in the post-race interview, eventual winner Benson Kipruto said he didn't even know there was somebody up there. He thought that the group that he was in was just all the group of leading men, because CJ was so far up. He went out, I think he had well over a minute through halfway. He went out on 2:08 marathon pace. So not crazy unreasonable, given his personal best. He's sort of in that 210 high, 211 range. And obviously, since then, having run, the indoor marathon record and the treadmill record. So, dude, or the 50K record. So he's just crazy, right? So he goes out off the front, crushing. Eventually, he does get caught around 20 miles in. So it was a good day for Brooks in terms of getting their money's worth of having that logo on his chest. But then eventually the group catches CJ. CJ latches onto the back somehow, just holding onto that train. And then it takes a little bit more for the race to blow open. But once it does, Benson Kipruto just takes it for the win, 2:09.51. Limi Branu was second in 2:10.37, just edging out his countrymate Jamal Yeamer 2:10:38. You had the first American actually ended up being Colin Binney in seventh. He runs 2:11:26. CJ holds on, finishes his second American and 10th overall, 2:11:44. So he actually rallied a bit there to come back into the top 10 overall. And then Scott Fauble from Hoka's NAZ Elite was third American, 2:13:47. Not a stellar day for the Hoka NAZ Elite crew by their own admission. Scott obviously has run 2:09 on this course, even with the heat, humidity, headwinds that some folks had talked about. It was not the race that he was looking for. Same thing for Rory Linklater and the other scout, Scott Smith. So we'll see what Ben Rosario has on deck for the rest of the crew. But with the women who are getting ready for New York, Kellen Taylor, Stephanie Bruce, we'll see if the sort of lackluster NAZ Elite performances continue, or if the women who've historically been a little bit higher ranked internationally, if they can turn it around and end it on a high note for the group. So that is marathoning this weekend in a nutshell. Marcel Hug, Hugh, in the wheelchair race misses $50,000 for beating his own course record because he missed the right turn on the Hereford. So literally the second to last turn of the entire course, a course that he has done and won like 7 times, misses the final turn and then has to back up and then get back on course. So for not hitting his course record, which he was under, he missed it by 7 seconds. Estimated it took him about 15 or 20 seconds to get back on course. And that cost him $50,000. So right on Hereford, left on Boylston. Remember it forever. That's it. That's marathons this past weekend. But we had a lot of things going on, not just in the marathon world. It's got some ultra stuff. I heard there was some kind of a big stage race that occurred, and that's your world, buddy.
Oh, which stage? Are you talking about Marathon des Sables?
Yeah.
Marathon des Sables did happen. There was, did we talk about last week that there was about the death that happened there? I think we did.
We did touch on that. Yep.
But it did happen. The rest of it happened. And Rashid El Morabadi of Morocco won for the 8th time. And then Aziza Raji, also of Morocco, won on the women's race. So, I don't know that I have a lot to add for that other than recognizing it happened. I think I would love to touch on 2 races that did happen. And I think one we can go a little deeper on because I think it's a pretty timely topic to talk about. So first one, Moab 240. We had that did go off this last weekend, kind of started, I think, Friday and went over the weekend and early into the week. There was some weather that was in the forecast, so they ended up using their snow route, which we'll touch on here in a minute, a bit more about that. But they stayed out of the La Salles, basically the La Salle Mountains above Moab. They normally kind of go up through those. They took a lower route, but we saw Michael McKnight and Jovica Spajic, I guess together, 203 miles in, we had these guys neck and neck. And Mike McKnight went on to win 2 days, 7 hours. So that's 55 hours and 49 minutes. Put an hour on him. And that is a course record. Of course, this is the snow course, which I believe it's got to be a bit easier since you stay lower down, probably not as much climbing. But he's pretty much when it comes to these 200-mile races, I mean, Michael McKnight is the king of 200s, I would say. We're looking forward to him coming for some revenge on the Cocodona course. Very excited about that next year. And then Annie Hughes, who just won the Leadville Trail 100. She is, I think, 23 years old, stepping up to the 200-plus mile distance for the first time. She won in, it looks like, if I can do math right now, 69 hours with a big gap. So kind of a new face, new name in the 100-mile scene as of just, I think, a couple months ago, and now winning the Moab 240. Pretty exciting stuff. The next one we want to touch on, I don't know if you caught this, but there was a race just outside of Salt Lake called the DC Peaks 50. iRunFar did a whole write-up on this. There was some sensational headlines about this one, but I think we want to cut down to like what exactly happened here. This was a brand new 50-mile point-to-point race in the mountains above Salt Lake, so the Wasatch Mountains. I think some of the same area where the Wasatch 100 is, and this event got canceled mid-race. It did start down in the Salt Lake area and then climbed up as high as I think 9,000 feet. There's a pretty major storm that came through on race day. The forecast, I think, was calling for snow, quite a bit of snow up high. There were even reportedly some mountain passes in the area that preventatively were closed down due to the forecast. This race started, and it became pretty apparent in the first big climb of the race that this is a bad idea. Basically, blizzard whiteout conditions. They had 87 people in the race. The race directors, their first time putting on an event from what I can see, and they essentially had to call in search and rescue to get these runners safely off the mountain. Not a good move, especially in light of what we saw earlier this year in China. The parallels are striking. Fortunately, everyone made it off the mountain okay. There was some hypothermia and things that happened, but it seems like everyone's all right from this situation. But I think it's kind of another wake-up call here to event organizers. You know, you got to have some contingency plans here. We saw with Moab, they moved to a snow course, and I think this race being in October in these mountains, it's not to say you can't have a race in winter in these mountains. I mean, look at Rufa running up for air. Jared Campbell, I participated in that race in February, and the whole course is snow, but we kind of know that's happening. I think there's some lessons to be learned here for event organizers, for participants. Just because someone's organizing a race doesn't mean they have everything figured out necessarily. I'm not here to bash on the race directors. I'm not here to bash on the runners, but I think it's important for us to take a minute here and look at what we're doing, what's going on, what kind of preparations. Like, races shouldn't call search and rescue to rescue an entire field of runners. And I don't know, like, I wasn't there on race day to say they had to cart everyone off. I think a lot of people got down under their own power, but just the fact that search and rescue had to be mobilized in this situation, I think could have been avoided. And we don't want to strive to have this happen. Like, if we can avoid using these resources for organized events, we should do that. That's kind of my little soapbox, but I don't know. Like, yeah, let's have some risk management plans. Let's have some backup plans. Let's determine when we need to either like use a lower down route, like that avoids like a winter storm at 9,000 feet. Let's try and avoid that if possible. Or if we have to cancel, let's cancel before we put people in a bad spot. That's my take on it. Like, it's just like sense. It's tough. Like, you got people that have never put on a race before. They're probably trying their best, but I think sometimes we need more, especially this late into the season. Yeah,
I mean, there's definitely the sort of Euro notion of required gear and things like that and what runners can do to protect themselves. But part of it's also, protecting runners from themselves at some points, because we know that they'll push through. If they've been training for a goal for 4, 5, 6 months, a year, this might be their first race back after the pandemic. It's like if you can sort of be like, hold on, let's pump the brakes and adjust so that you're not even in that situation. A little bit of preventions before interventions go a long way. So it'll be interesting. I'm sure there'll be a lot of conversations that come out of this, because when it's in China, that's one element. But when it happens domestically, this might be a call to arms for the RDs out there. Obviously there's a lot of conversations that happen about how to survive the pandemic, how to put on races safely coming out of COVID environments, this might be one of those things that gets touched upon in the group text or at the running event or by ATRA. There's a conversation that will need to be had, and it's better to probably do that one proactively as well instead of waiting for something tragic to happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually iRunFar did a great job reporting on this. They have an article titled "What Really Happened at the 2021 DC Peaks 50-Mile Race." I recommend going and reading that. It's kind of an unbiased take on it. And then there's like 55 comments, a lot of, I think, great information. People are being, seems like pretty respectful and kind of sharing some really great insights and it's good stuff. Hop in there if you want to read up on it. But I know for us at Aravaipa, we've been working on our own risk management plan even since earlier in this year. And, we have a lot of scenarios at our events that we've learned over the years. And there's not just winter weather. I mean, there's all kinds of things. There's thunderstorms, there's lightning, there's flash floods, there's heat. I'm hearing like a plane. I don't know if that's me or you, but it could be me too because we have the airport right here. So yeah, I think it's really important to have these conversations. I hope it jumpstarts more that we can all learn from one another and how do you put together a risk management plan? How do you work with your local authorities? I think there's also some great weather-related resources too. How do you get the best local accurate forecast, from the experts and not just let's check the weather app, but let's read up. There's people that devote their lives to weather and emergency response and preparedness. And what are those resources that you can tune into? There's a great one here in Arizona that I found recently called I think it's Arizona Weather Force. And it's this guy that he obsesses about this stuff because I guess when he was a teenager and he lost his friend in a weather related incident where the local news didn't get it right. His friend went out and something didn't come back. So it's finding those resources, where to go, how to educate yourself, how to prepare, so that we can avoid these types of situations. And it's not good for the sport in general too. I mean, now that the media, I think as well, is kind of clued in, they had the China incident fresh on their minds, and now it's they ran with this story as well. And I think probably played it up a little bit more than the situation potentially, but also, I mean, it was probably a pretty serious situation. I mean, I saw snowmobiles out there rescuing runners. That's pretty wild. It's not a scene that we want, and it's not going to help any of us in our future permitting efforts if we're not acting responsibly when we get together as a community for these big events. So that's my 2 cents on that. Now spinning forward, let's talk about real quick. We only have a couple minutes left today. We've got a big event starting this weekend, Big Dog's Backyard Ultra in Tennessee. I am so sad to be missing it. I couldn't fit it into my schedule to make it out there, so I have major FOMO. But if you want direct news updates, Facebook is a great place for that. The Big Dog's Backyard Ultra Run group. This is directly where Laz will be posting. There's 20,000 members, believe it or not, part of this. And there's also going to be there's a link there to the results. And there's also going to be a live stream from Solomon, I believe, because Solomon is sponsoring it this year. And so let's check that out. What do we have here? We've got Courtney DeWalter running. We got Maggie, Harvey Lewis. Trying to go through here. Dave Proctor, Michael Wardian, Gavin Woody. I think there are some international entrants. They didn't get all of them that they were hoping to. Harvey Lewis is back again, who was our runner-up last year with Courtney. The big question is, how many yards are they going to go this year? Do you have any projections or thoughts?
I mean, I think that it depends on how they end up packing up and how much they want to work together with each other. Listen, I think it's gonna be a record year. I'm gonna put that out there. If the record doesn't get broken, then I'll be pretty surprised. But between the fitness that we've seen from Courtney, we know that Maggie and Harvey are both experienced, well rested, and hungry. I think that they're going to be able to push, and at least the three of them will be able to continue to goose each other along for quite some time. I fully expect a record, and then once it gets past that point, then all bets are off. But I'm just saying, like, it's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we have 36 entrants, it looks like, according to the results here. We're not seeing, some of the international guys that participated last year. Of course, we had the World Championship where you had like these satellite ones all over. That's not happening this year. It's just the one in Laz's own backyard. But yeah, it'll be fun, and I'm really intrigued to see what the live stream coverage is going to be like this year. I don't know if they're just going to have like a finish line camera, or if they're actually going to have some encore stuff. But I think it'll be something pretty exciting to tune into this weekend. I think it starts tomorrow morning, I believe. And so if you're not familiar with that format, they're doing 4.167 miles at the start of every hour for as many hours as it takes for there to be one person left standing. The daytime loop hours are on trail, and the nighttime is on a paved road that is near Laz's property. So I haven't looked at the weather forecast to see what that's like, but if you want to see some behind the scenes, you can, of course, follow, I think, any of the runners that are in the race, or there's some stuff going up on Big Dog's Backyard Ultra Facebook group. But we will definitely, it might still be going on when we record our podcast this next week. In all likelihood, it probably will be.
That's the hope, yeah.
That would be like, it might be getting close to the wire at that point. So we'll see.
Live reaction pod. That'll be fun.
Yeah. We could pull up the stream maybe. Cool. Well, sweet. I think we need to kind of wrap it up for this week. We only had about 30 minutes today. Do you have anything else for us?
It should be a pretty exciting weekend. Cross country wise, at least for college, it's Friday. I don't know why college races happen on Fridays, but both the pre-nationals and the Nuttycombe Wisconsin invite go down today. So we'll cover it in depth and what that means to the rankings, because we're getting a postseason, man. We're a month away from nationals for cross. So we'll dive into it. You can catch all the streams on like Runner Space and Flow Track and YouTube and the internet. But yeah, we'll dive into it and what it means for college cross country when we chat next on Tuesday. So get out there, have some fun this weekend. The leaves are changing. Think about some Halloween costumes and let's get weird, because we're also 2 short weeks from Javelina, baby.
Yep. And we'll touch more on that next week. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.
Peace.